I'm going to go ahead and start today's webinar. If you signed up for the Administering Assessments and Tracking Progress webinar, then you're in the right place. Thank you everyone for taking time out of your busy back to school schedules to join me for this webinar. My name is Jackie. I work here on our customer success team at Platform. You've likely heard from me by now, as part of my job is to keep our customers informed of how to get the most value out of Platform. So that's exactly what I hope you get out of today. Feel free to use the Q&A feature at any point throughout this webinar. I'll try my best to answer your questions throughout, but if not, I'll plan to set aside time at the end to answer any of your questions. So here is an agenda for today's webinar. All of you who have joined this webinar are likely aware that Platform gives you the ability to log test results. So that could be max lifts or any other fitness assessments that you plan to track through Platform. And if this data is being logged in Platform, that also means you have the ability to track student progress. So I want to kind of piece those two areas of our product together for you. Tracking progress can look really different depending on your student audience, which programs you may be following, which assessments you're interested in tracking, and how frequently those tests are logged. So in today's webinar, I hope to shed more light on where testing occurs in the Platform programs, as well as how you can log additional tests outside of program testing, as well as best practices for tracking progress. So to get started, I want to begin by taking a look at the testing that occurs within the Platform programs. So what I mean by that is if you were to assign some of our programs digitally to your students, it would prompt them to input test results. So those test results are sort of baked into the program. But sometimes if you're navigating the program library page, I understand that it can be challenging to figure out where those tests occur. So that's what I want to highlight first. So what we're looking at on this screen here are the different test categories that you will find within the Platform programs. So we do test a series of fitness assessments. Those are found in our Intro to Fitness series. So we test aerobic capacity through the mile run. We test the push, the pull, we test strength capacity through push-up test, pull-up test, and a max air squat test. We test student mobility through a squat therapy test. That's where they're squatting against a wall to see how far away they have to stand from that wall to get into a full squat. We're testing their anaerobic capacity via the 2-minute burpee test. We're testing their stability through a plank hold. And then we test overall fitness through the Platform Metcon. So these fitness assessments give us a really good understanding of how students measure up in various fitness categories. In our more advanced weightlifting programs, we are assessing maxes. So that would include the back squat, bench press, deadlift, power clean, front squat, and strict press. And then we use something called work sets to continually assess those max lifts. So that's another category of assessments that is only found in our weight training programs, are those work sets. And then lastly, we do have a series of performance assessments. These are going to be found in our athletic development programs only. So we test their power through the vertical jump, their strength through their pull-up max, their strength capacity through how many push-ups and air squats they can do in a set duration of time. We test their skills using a jump rope test. And lastly, their stability and stamina using a plank hold. So now that you know the various categories of fitness testing that we do within our programs, let's zoom in a little bit more to find out when and where these tests are captured. All right. So what we're looking at here, this is a visual representation of our suggested progression for teaching fitness and strength. And you'll notice highlighted in the red text here, these are where we're pointing out which fitness assessment categories we are including in that program progression. So I'll kind of walk you through how we do things. So you'll notice at this end of Intro to Fitness Part 1, we do include some baseline fitness assessments. At the end of Intro to Fitness Part 2, we then retest that category of assessments. If you're not sure what the assessments are, you can reference the key down here. So again, these are the fitness assessments I'm referring to in the Intro to Fitness series. If a student were to complete Intro to Fitness Part 1 and Part 2, they would then have 2 data points captured for this set of fitness assessments, and thus enable you to run a progress report for those data points. After Intro to Fitness, a student is ready to progress into our Intro to Strength series. In Part 1, we establish first-time maxes for these lifts right here. So we test for their 1 rep max back squat, bench press, and deadlift. In Part 2, we just start to focus on a different set of lifts, and same thing, we establish baseline maxes for those. So that includes the front squat, the strict press, and the hang clean. After the Intro to Strength series, students can progress into an athletic development training path. So that could include an in or off-season program. Within those programs, we continually keep track of their max lifts through work sets. So that's where we're asking them to input their performance on those core lifts. And with that data, we actually project where their max now lies. In the athletic development programs, we also include those performance assessments. So those are listed down here. Again, these are just more closely tied to athletic development. If a student were to progress from Intro to Strength into more of a personal weight training path, that would be here, our personal weight training program. In that program, we also use work sets to continually adapt their baseline max tests for those max lifts we established initially. And then we also retest those fitness assessments. So these ones right here. So if students were to progress from Intro to Fitness Part 1 through Intro to Strength into personal weight training, they would now have 3 data points for this series of fitness assessments. The other weight training option is for a student to move right from Intro to Strength Training Part 2 into this personal fitness program. This program is a weight training program with the barbell removed. So in this one, we are not using work sets. Instead, we are just retesting those fitness assessments right here. So again, that would give them, again, a 3rd data point for those fitness assessments, which you could run a progress report for. If this map is helpful, I do want to point out where it lives. So if you're logged into your platform account and you open up your community tab, this is where you can access all of our really great resources. That one we've labeled as fitness and strength progression. So if you just type the word progression into your search bar, you'll be able to find that map. This can be helpful when planning out your school year. If you do plan to, teach fitness or strength or weight training in any capacity, this progression can be really helpful to just be aware of and know when the testing is going to occur. All right, so moving back into our platform website now. Now that we know which tests are being captured throughout the platform programs and where, let's take a look at how you can actually organize the data that is being collected. So that is going to take place on your testing dashboard. So to get there, you'll want to use this shortcut and click on Log Test Results. This is going to open up your staff testing dashboard. So here, I like to think of this as a place where you can view, edit, and input data. Think of it as your Excel spreadsheet replacement, or if you were previously housing fitness metrics by hand, this is a better, more organized way where all of your data can now live. So here you can also browse the available tests in platform. If you're not sure what you are able to track and which test metrics you want to track outside of the programs, you can always click on Add Test Category and kind of click through the categories we have. For example, for weightlifting, we have far more than the squat, bench, clean, deadlift, and that list of assessments we just looked at. We have several other options. So what you can do with this page is you can create testing categories, or you can edit the ones that you might already see here. So if it's your first time visiting this page, you might see already a fitness, a weightlifting category. You might also see speed and agility. These are just commonly used tests that are logged. So we have them created as default categories for you. What you can do is edit those, or again, create your own. So for example, in my weightlifting category, I have a squat, a clean, and a bench. But let's say I also want to capture the deadlift or anything else. I can click on this hidden menu icon right here, click edit. I'm going to go into my weightlifting category. I can either search for the deadlift, or I see it right here. I can easily hit the plus sign to add it and click update. What I've just done is added that deadlift to my weightlifting category. Now I can easily come here, click on weightlifting, pull up a certain group that I want to view weightlifting numbers for. I can view and input new data from this screen right here. If you want to create your own test category, you would just click this add test category button and give your category a name and add the metrics you want to it. For example, in our Intro to Fitness program, we also capture something called finishers. They're fun little Metcon style workouts where we're typically asking the students to log either how many reps they were able to do or rounds, or maybe time the workout. It's not necessarily something you would run a progress report on, but it can be fun to just make sure your students did log a score and see how they did. So I might create a category just so I can view the data that they've logged for those finisher scores. So I might call this category finishers, and then I can either look in the finisher category, or I happen to know that they're all labeled by number. So the 101 program is referring to Intro to Fitness Part 1. I'm just going to go through and add, let's say, the first 3 finishers to my testing category. And now I've got a tab on the left-hand side where I can easily come to my testing page, click on finishers, and see what my class has recorded for their finisher scores. Some things to know about this page. So I like to say that this page is a two-way street. So what I mean by that is if your students log a test result through their account, it will display on this page here. And vice versa. If you were to, let's say, plug in a new max lift that you saw them complete in class that day, I'm going to go ahead and update this one right here for Max. This new number for Max's squat would appear on his dashboard as well. So it's one data point, but it's transparent between you and the student. And we'll get into how students can log Maxes themselves as well, or testing results, I should say. But think of this as a transparent way for both you and the student to capture and log and keep track of their data points. All right, so another thing to be mindful of is every time you log a new score, you'll notice a new date is attached to it. So while it might look like you're overriding the existing data point, you're actually just recording a new one with the day's date attached to it, and they're all going to be saved in platform. That way, when you run a progress report or you go to view report cards, and we'll look at that later, the progress graphs, each data point is associated with a new date, and they're all saved. With that being said, you also have the ability to edit past entries. So if a test result was logged in error, or you need to make any edits, you can do so by clicking this button here, edit past entries. So if I pull that up, I'm just going to want to select which student I need to make a change for. So I'm going to click on Andrea here. I also need to know which test I'm going to edit. So I know that I'm going to edit a weightlifting test. Perhaps I know that she entered a duplicate squat by accident. So here I can see all of Andrea's squat test results and the dates attached to them. And I can keep scrolling to see all of them. So I see a duplicate here. Let's say this second one here, she was not supposed to record again. I'm just going to click the trash can icon and remove that score. I could also have typed over that data point and overrode the information. One last thing to point out on this page is you can download the data directly from this page. So let's say a coach or an admin asks you for, I want to know the last logged data point for the squat, bench, and clean for the girls soccer team. You can easily pull up that group, click on the weightlifting category and click download. This will create an export to Excel with the student roster and these data points right here. So I did get a question, can you enter a test that is not already part of the list that platform has uploaded? For example, BMI. So you can't right now create your own tests in platform. That is a future product release we hope to have available. But the example you gave was BMI. So I do want to point out that we do have some body comp data points. So you could put weight, height, whatever it is you want to include. And as I just showed you, all of that data can be downloaded to Excel. Once you have those data points in Excel, you could potentially calculate BMI based on the data you pulled out of platform. But I don't believe BMI is an option in and of itself. No. Good question. All right, so moving on to other ways that tests can be logged. So we know how to set up your testing page. That's what we just reviewed right here, which is where you as a coach or teacher can organize and input test results. Now let's take a look at the other way that tests are captured in platform. So before we dive into that, I do want to point out that you have a setting in your account. So if you were to hover over this little caret here in the upper right-hand corner of your account, you'll notice there's a settings option. So if we click on that, you do have the ability to adjust this setting, which is called control of test results. I can lock that to staff only, or I can open it up to staff and student. If you're noticing you don't have the ability to edit it like I don't, that just means it has to be controlled by the admin, who should be listed here. So I usually recommend as a school or as a staff that uses platform and shares platform, you'll want to kind of land on what you want this setting to be as a group and make those changes through the admin. If you were to lock it to staff only, students would not be able to log a test result directly through their analytics dashboard. If you open it up to staff and students can also manage their own testing page. I'll show you what that looks like in a moment, just like you can with your dashboard that we just covered. The only caveat here is if you were to lock this to staff only, students could still enter a test result that is that they're being asked to log through a program. So basically logging it to staff only removes the ability for students to do it through their analytics dashboard only. Hopefully that was clear. So now that we know what the setting options are, let's take a look at how students can log data. So I'm going to open up a student account for this example. This is what a student account looks like. Couple ways that they can enter test results. So the first way is through a program. So that means you've assigned them a program and that program includes test results in it. So to access an assigned workout, they would start by going to their workout tab right here. And we all just learned that the Intro to Fitness Part 1 program does include a series of baseline fitness tests at the end. So let's take a look at what that looks like from the student view. So if I click into Intro to Fitness Part 1, you can see I've logged a couple of workouts so far, but I'm actually going to scroll all the way to the bottom where the tests live. So this is what that testing week looks like for these students. You'll notice there's a warm-up for all tests, which is really great. They can click into that, follow along with our guided warm-up before getting into the testing. And then when they're ready to record a result or do the test, they would click into the one that they're doing that day. So I'm going to click into this push-up and pull-up test. And just like any other workout that they would record, they can click start workout. We time the session just like a regular workout. The nice thing about capturing tests in platform is that we do, include the video and demonstration content that they would want to see prior to doing this test. So we typically warm them up, explain the test, demo how to do it. And then they'll see this button here that says log test results. So they would actually click on that button and record their result directly into platform. Let's say I was able to complete 8 perfect push-ups. I would hit save. That data point is now stored and attached to the student account. You could be able to view it on your testing dashboard that we just explored. When they're done with that test, they'd move on to the strict pull-up test, watch the video where we explain the test and how to do it. These notes will kind of give some more tips for walking through the test. We usually remind them to record their score right here. Again, they would click log test results and input that result directly through the program that they're logging. So that's one way that students can input test results, is through a program that's been assigned to them. The test is baked in. The other way is what I like to call directly through the analytics dashboard. So the student analytics dashboard is basically their version of that testing page that you have. It lives down in this performance section. So just like you had to configure your testing page, students also have to configure theirs. A common question that I get asked is teachers want to think that, if they configure their testing dashboard, that all the students, it's going to translate to the student's dashboard as well, but that's not true. Students also have the ability to configure their test or their analytics dashboard to reflect the test that they want to track for themselves. We're trying to help them take ownership over their training. So if they wanted to record their mile, their snatch, what have you, they can. One piece of advice is if you do want them capturing and logging certain results is perhaps on the first day of school or first week of class, walking them through setting up their analytics dashboard to include the tests that you want them tracking and recording. So that's another way to kind of get everyone on the same page, make sure everyone's analytic dashboard looks the same so that they can easily enter results whenever they need to. But let's say, for instance, this student wanted to record more than just their bench, squat, and clean. I think these show up here as default setting. But if the student were to click add new, they can go through our list of tests and select ones that they want to add. They can search the list, but it is in alpha order. Let's say they also want to track the timed mile, the plank hold, and the clean and jerk. They can go ahead, select those metrics, hit save, and then you'll notice if they arrow over, they now have a tile for each of those metrics that they can click on, which is going to pull it up here, and they can log a result. So those are the two ways that students can input a test result. Again, one was through an assigned workout where it's very obviously asking them to record a result. The other is direct through the analytics dashboard. All right, so now that we know how tests can be captured and platformed by both staff and by student, what can you do with all of this data? So next, I'm going to move back into our staff account to demonstrate some progress reports that you can run with this data. So progress reports are going to be found in the reports tab. And when it comes to tracking progress, there are two types of reports that you can use in platform. So I'm going to click the plus sign here. This is how you start to create a report. And these are your report types, or the options you have. A report card is going to present you with an individual report of each student, including progress graphs, along with summary data for the group. So you can easily compare that student's progress to the group averages. A progress report is going to give you a list view of all of your students, their start and end results, percentage change, absolute change. And this is the best report for seeing a lot of students at once, all on one page, and you can export it to Excel. So again, depending on what you're planning to do with the data, will determine which report you'd want to use here. So let's go ahead and create a few example reports. So I'm going to start with a report card. And let's say I am working with 9th grade PE and we are following the Intro to Fitness series. So I want to run a progress report for those baseline fitness assessments that are included. I'm going to give my report a name. I'm going to call it PE9 Fitness Assessments. And you'll just want to select the group that you're running this report for. I'm going to run this from my 6th-hour PE9 group. You can certainly include multiple groups on one report. Next, you're going to want to plug in all the tests you want to view on that report. So this would include the mile, the push-up max, the pull-up max. I think we have the 1-minute air squat max, the burpee test, and I'm just searching and finding them. You can also scroll through. I'm going to do our plank hold, and then lastly, test overall fitness with that platform Metcon. So you may recognize these. These are the category of fitness assessments that we test for in several of our programs. Lastly, you would input a date range for which you want to view progress for. So you can choose, this week, last week, this month, last month, or input a custom date range. I usually do that, especially if I want to put in like the semester's dates, start and end dates. So it's important that you cast a window that includes more than one data point. If your start and end date only includes one data point, we won't be able to show progress. We only know one data point. So in this example, I usually like to cast a pretty wide net. For example, I will do the start of last school year and go to the end of the school year. I'm going to hit generate report. Depending on how much data the report needs to spit out is going to determine how long it takes to load here. All right. So this is what a report card looks like. So it's going to start with some attendance, some summary data at the top regarding attendance. So you can see your group, who is most present, least present, and the group average. That can be useful when you do start to look at their progress. Maybe the ones making the most progress correlates to the ones who are have the highest attendance rates, and consequently vice versa. So beyond that, I'm going to get some summary data for each of those test metrics I included in that report. So I can see for the push-up max, we actually didn't make any progress as a group. I can also see the top 3 leaders. For pull-up max, it looks like we did make some progress as a group. I can see my top 3 leaders and so on. So I'm going to get some summary data for each test metric, which is really helpful as sort of a baseline to know where my students stand on average. And then beyond that summary data, I then get the actual report card. So that's 1 report card per student in the group that I included on my report. At the top of the individual report card, I again get the attendance summary data with that student highlighted. So I can see their attendance average compared to the group. I can see Michelle did a really nice job. She was the leading attending student in my class. And then I can see the highlighted progress for each test metric as well as a progress graph. So it looks like her push-up max actually went down. This is Michelle. She does lots of demos for us, so her data's all over the place. But hopefully you're seeing a nice progression upwards trend of these test results. So that's what the the report card looks like. Report cards can be exported to a PDF. If you wanted to just print out like an individual one, I would click on this PDF icon here, which is attached to Michelle. If I wanted to export and print them all at once, I can download them all at once here. So again, that's what a report card looks like. It shows both attendance and progress for a set metrics that you include on your report for a custom date range that you include on your report as well. These are really nice for like end of semester, end of season feedback conversations. They're helpful for grading purposes, for having conversations with the student about their progress, all that good stuff. Next, I'm going to go back to the reports page and we'll run through a progress report together. So again, this is more of a list view where I see a lot more student data in one place. So to start, I'm going to click this plus sign. And in this example, I'm going to create a progress report for my advanced students who are doing a weightlifting program. So I might call this advanced weights. maxes. I want to know their max progress. I would select the group for which I want to see on this report. I'm going to do my 4th hour strength and conditioning class, hit next. And then I'm going to include the test results I want to see on this report. So again, I'm going to include the squat, bench, and clean because those are the 3 metrics that we use work sets for. So I know that as long as students were logging their work sets, I should see a nice steady improvement, hopefully, in those metrics. So I've got my 3 metrics selected, and then lastly, I'm going to input that same date range I used above. All right, start of last school year to the end of this one. I'm going to generate that report. Here's my list view. First I see the bench results, then the clean, then the squat. And so for each metric, I see a roster of my students in that group, start point for that date, for that test result, end point for that test result, percent change, and result change. So again, this is more useful if you want to see it all in one place. I think this is a really great way to highlight progress leaders. So some of you may be familiar with our leaderboards where you can highlight, the strongest, the fastest, who has the best result in any metric or combination of metrics. What you could do here is organize the results by percent change. So if I click on that percent change header, it is going to pull up the higher percentages to the top. So these essentially are my progress leaders in the bench press. I can do the same thing for the clean. I can sort it by top leaders in progress to those who didn't make quite as much progress. But just another way to highlight students who might not be the strongest, but certainly are putting in a lot of effort and making a ton of progress. Again, this data can be exported to Excel. So once you have data in Excel, you can easily manipulate it. Hopefully that helps to clarify some options for reporting that you have as far as viewing progress for all that data that you now know how to capture in platform. So since this webinar is on the topic of assessments, I wanted the chance to highlight something we have called written assessments in some of our programs. So while exploring our program library, some of you may have stumbled upon these. So I'm just going to highlight where they live and which programs have them. So going over to my program library, the fitness, literacy, and the nutrition programs all have written assessments. So if you were to click preview on the fitness literacy program, this is a cognitive program, so it's not physical. We are just teaching fitness concepts. And then we do have associated chapter questions. So you'll find them at the end of each lesson. They're open response questions. The only thing to be aware of is that platform was not built to collect open response answers. So if you did want to use these written assessments, we just recommend capturing them either in a third-party LMS system or somewhere outside of platform. But we do give you the answer sheet. So all of the answer sheets can be found in more details of that program. Here's a link. It says download teacher's guide and assessment answer key here. So that's where you'd find the answers. Same thing with our nutrition program. If I click preview on that program, you'll notice if I pop into the various chapters, we actually have chapter questions associated with each chapter. Same thing, the questions live here. You can tell your students to submit the answers, but you'll want to tell them to submit them either through Google Classroom or whatever LMS system you use. But again, the answers would live in more details. Lastly, we do have some written assessments that are associated with the Intro to Fitness series. So this is a physical program, but we did want to just give you another way of making sure your students captured that knowledge. So if you were to click more details on Intro to Fitness Part 1, you will find at the bottom a written assessment. So if you click on that, it's going to have both the questions and the answer sheet for you. So same thing, this is more of a sheet that you could use. So you could print, distribute this in class, or copy and paste it into your third-party LMS system. The answers are available at the end of this document. And we also reference which part of the program the answer could be found in, where we taught that lesson. All right, so I did think that was important to cover. That is the bulk of the content I wanted to get through today, but I do have some tips and tricks that I'm going to run through, so just some extra nice things to know about testing and platform. So the first thing I wanted to mention is a frequently asked question. So I often get asked, what if I want to do baseline fitness assessments before the Intro to Fitness series? So if you can recall, back to our map, we first established baseline fitness assessments at the end of Intro to Fitness Part 1. That is a 6-week program. So that means if you start that program, you are not getting any data captured for 6 weeks. We typically like to teach the movements before testing in them, but these movements are certainly very safe to do at any time. So you certainly could administer those beforehand. A couple ways you could do that. So going back to our platform account here, you could very easily assign Intro to Fitness Part 1 to your class or to your group. And you'll notice if I click preview, the last week is a baseline fitness testing week. You could simply tell your students, all right, skip to the end of the program, we're starting here. And you can just walk them through the testing and establish a baseline that way. Another way, if you want to be a little more restrictive and if you think your students have a hard time following directions, is you could actually make a copy of Intro to Fitness. You could call it Intro to Fitness Testing, perhaps. Hit confirm. Once you've made a copy of our program, you can actually use the workout builder to edit it. So what I sometimes advise people to do is to actually just remove all the weeks except for the testing week very easily by clicking on this 3-dot menu, removing all the weeks except for the fitness testing week. So what you've essentially done here is created a testing only program. So if you wanted, you could assign and therefore administer these tests at the start of your school year. There it is. So now you've got all your tests, and this program now lives in the custom section of your program library. You could easily go to manage, assign it to whatever group you want to run that testing for, and they now have that testing program assigned to them. That's one option. Same thing goes for another common question I get, which is, what if I want to just max test my students? So as you saw in our progression, we do max test the students after we teach them all the core lifts through the Intro to Strength Training series. If, let's say, you're working with a group of students that is more advanced than that, they don't need to go through the full introduction to strength. You just want to get their maxes in there. Couple ways to do that. Again, you saw earlier that students can just log numbers directly through their analytics dashboard. So you could simply tell them, hey, go to your analytics dashboard and log your squat, your bench, your clean, and your deadlift. Another way to do that is through the programs. So I will just highlight the athlete on-ramp, which lives on the intermediate tab. In that program, it's sort of like a condensed version of Intro to Strength, in the sense that we conclude with baseline max assessments. So if I were to click preview on that program, same thing. The final week is a working maxes week. In other words, a max assessment week. Each lesson is dedicated to a different max: the squat, the bench, the clean, and the deadlift. You could essentially assign this program to your group and tell them, hey kids, go to the last block 3C. We're just going to do a max week. Or similar to what I just showed you, you could make a copy of Athlete On-Ramp, call it max testing, go to your workout builder, and same thing. You could remove the weeks leading up to the max testing week. Sometimes I have coaches and teachers who maybe want to use the last 3 weeks. They want to do like a barbell week to review the movements, a loaded barbell week to kind of test where their strength numbers are, and then do a working max week. Other teachers and coaches just want that max week. In that case, they would delete all the weeks except for the last one. And now you've essentially just created a program. You've called it max testing, and you just simply have the max tests for all those 4 core lifts that they need. With that being said, also like to highlight, if any of your students are following any of our advanced weight training programs, those do require a max squat, bench, clean, and deadlift number be entered into platform in order for those programs to function properly. All of the advanced weight training programs do use percentages, so we are calculating how much weight each student should put on the bar on an individual basis, but in order for our program to be able to do that, we need those max numbers. So just something to be mindful of. If you're going straight into 3-day off season, for example, you will want to get maxes in there somehow, whether it's assigning them athlete on ramp, as I just showed you, or just instructing your kids to go straight to their analytics dashboard and recording them. Couple other tips. The testing dashboard that we talked about at the very beginning, where you as a staff member can view and input data. This feature also lives in the app, the staff app. So if you were to log into the platform app, you'll see a little testing tab that you can click into, and you can easily record results that way as well. So I have a lot of teachers who like to kind of have a phone or tablet in hand when they're in the weight room with students, and they can view and update data on the fly that way. So just another tip. And then lastly, the one other thing I wanted to cover is that you certainly could create your own custom testing program. So similarly to how I kind of just showed you how you can copy and edit those testing programs, you can also build your own from scratch. So if there are a series of tests that you like to do, maybe your state requires them, or you do FitGram, whatever it is you like to log, you can create it as a program. So I'm just going to briefly run through what that looks like. I'm going to hit create program here, and let's call this fitness testing. You can call it whatever you'd like. And I'm going to go to my workout builder. And let's say, for example, you want to program the sit and reach as a test into a program. You would click add exercise, and you would find that test as an exercise first. So I'm going to start by searching sit and reach. If you don't find it, you can create it as an exercise. But I'm just going to click on the sit and reach, the one with the video attached. That means there's a demonstration video attached to it. And then this is the important piece here. So when you click this activate test button in the workout builder, that's where you are asking our program to include a button that says log test result, and it will automatically capture that data point through the workout. So if I click activate test, I'm just going to want to search through that same list of available tests. Again, it's in alpha order. I'm going to find that sit and reach. And doing so just made it so that it's going to prompt the students to log a result through the assigned program. It's also useful to write a note. Oftentimes, you might say, attempt 3 times, record, best result below. Whatever kind of instruction you need to give about that test, you can include in the note. You can even include warm-up sets through the add set feature. However you want to kind of organize and create your custom testing program, you can. The important part is including that test at the bottom. So what I've just done is I've added an exercise. They'll see the label sit and reach, they'll see the demo video, and they'll see the button prompting them to record a result. I could do the same thing for a pillar workout. Let's say I wanted to capture some fun pillar workouts. These are, again, like Metcon style workouts that we have available on platform. I know there's one called Kona Coffee. This is the video where we actually explain the workout, walk the students through it. Same thing, I'm going to want to activate test to include that button to capture that result. I'm going to search for Kona Coffee. Should be in alpha order here. There we go. I might add a note. Watch the video to learn how to perform this workout and record your score below. So that's how you would create a testing program. You could relabel these as testing week 1. You might create like one full program with several different tests in it that you can use at any time. Once you have it as a custom program, you can essentially assign or administer the testing program whenever you'd like. So those are my tips that I wanted to walk through today. I'm going to see if we have any questions that came through. I'm going to hang out here for